Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome to Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with Mike Hightower here with me in studio, and out at his remote studio is Mike Tolbert. Nice to have you with us, and thank you very much for joining us. Our guest today could be called Mr. Resume in many respects, and that's because Mike Weinstein, the newly named Chief of Staff for Mayor Deegan, has served in the State Attorney's Office, worked for 3 Jacksonville mayors in top positions, headed a pair of major nonprofits in the city, and served in the legislature, even ran once for mayor. I know Mike personally. I mean to put this in there for transparency purposes, because when I left radio in 2000, Mike brought me into the JEDC, where I worked for him before he left to go work for the Super Bowl, and then I came over here with Audrey Moran to work for Mayor, at the time, Mayor Delaney. Anyhow, in the beginning of Mayor Deegan's term, Mike served as interim city finance director. Of course, we all know that he took the lead as city negotiator in the historic Stadium of the Future negotiations. And welcome to Mike's on Mike. Mike, also Mike, I think it is to have you with us. Thank you.
It's nice to be with a bunch of Mikes.
And we're all on Mike, too, which is kind of interesting. Tolbert, kick it off for us, will you?
Yeah, Mike Weinstein, before we get into the issues, given your rich history of government service, I want to know when you first became interested in public service and what motivated you? What caused you to take this path in your career?
Interesting question. It wasn't something that I pursued specifically. I was a ball player. I thought I would be a baseball player. Played basketball in college and baseball. And that didn't turn out. Didn't really know what I was going to do. My undergraduate degree was in political science, but that was just basically a choice, but not really a career choice. So I packed up a car and went to California when it wasn't baseball, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. Ended up getting in school, getting a master's degree out in California in criminal justice administration. So I did end up with an interest in law enforcement. So I thought maybe I would be in law enforcement. I got a master's degree in criminal justice administration out in California and wanted to continue education. So I looked at a doctoral program in criminology. And only 2 in the 70s offered that, Albany, New York, and FSU. So I came to FSU to fulfill the potential of a PhD in criminology. And while there, I got to know Ed Austin, the state attorney. And it was decided that when I finished with FSU, I would come to Jacksonville and work as the executive director, basically, for the state attorney's office here in Jacksonville. So I stayed there for 12 years, still law enforcement, prosecution. But I decided that I want to get a law degree, so I commuted for 2.5 years to Gainesville, got a law degree to be a prosecutor. But lo and behold, the mayor, Ed Austin, decided to run for mayor against Tommy Azzurri. And that's what happened. He became mayor, and a whole bunch of us came over. John Delaney came over, Audrey Moran, myself, Rick Mullaney, from the state attorney's office to help run the city. And that's what got me in city government. And most people think of me as a city employee, but I really have about 13, 14 years in city government. Most of my work, I've been working here in Jacksonville for 50 years, has not been in city government. It's been in state government and private practice as a lawyer, Super Bowl for 5 years, Take Stock and Shoulder for 5 years.
So say nonprofits, right?
Volunteers in medicine for a year. So I've done a variety of different things, not just government work. Retired at least 4 different times. Came back to work for a variety of reasons, and I've been very blessed. But it's not just government, but it's been great. People say to me how much they appreciate what I've done, basically, but it's the other way around. I'm blessed to have had the opportunity that Jacksonville has given me to participate in these things. So I'm owing rather than being owed. I've been very fortunate.
One of the things getting positive attention here in Jacksonville is the development of downtown and development. And I know was sitting in the building that you and Ed talked about. The latest announcement was the decision of the University of Florida to build the graduate school at La Villa. How did that come about? Explain the importance of downtown and all of Jacksonville, but that was some tough negotiations. You and Mayor Deegan have been a part of that. Can you pull the curtain back? One, talk about the importance of it to downtown development, a little bit about that and how this is going to impact tax.
Well, the term downtown development has been bandied around, for a long time, and different mayors have taken different initiatives. Jacob Gobbo was very successful. Mike Talbot participated in that, in moving things along with downtown, and it's been up and down with the economy. But Mayor Deegan is definitely focused. We have a very unique opportunity with the mayor. Mayor is like a fifth generation Jacksonville, and she's all about Jacksonville. And she gets it that basically you can't be a suburb to nowhere. Downtown is the core of Northeast Florida. The reason why Gainesville's here as a medical facility is because we're so large. Gainesville doesn't give them the same opportunities to teach the doctors, to do emergency work and what have you. They're here for a reason already. What used to be University Hospital now is then Shands and now University of Florida Health. So we are the core, and it's very, very important that downtown becomes more like it used to be. There's nothing like walking through City Hall today and seeing the pictures of downtown years ago. Bustling, people all over the place, just active as could be. That's what we need, and we're doing very well on the east side with the stadium complex, Four Seasons, Mosh going there, the park there. And we've done very well in Brooklyn, La Villa area. It's so much more than it was just a few years ago, right? And the University of Florida is so great for a number of reasons. First of all, they are the top school within the system. They're looked at nationally as a research entity. And to have them consider coming here to establish somewhat of a major part of their campus was very enticing. They started talking to the mayor early on. The mayor was very receptive. And then for the last year, we've been sitting down. Lori Boyer, Downtown Investment, definitely part of the puzzle. We've been working with them for quite some time. The idea of getting a semiconductor research element, which is all about AI and all about chips and what have you. And the university is sort of landlocked down in Gainesville. They see this as somewhat of an Austin, Texas situation where we could really develop a workforce for the future technologies and couple it with UNF and JU and Edward Waters and what was the community college, now the State Jacksonville College. It can be a real hub. We already have the JU Law School down here. We have the Jacksonville State College down here, and we have UNF doing classes down here. So we really have an opportunity, and they wanted it big time. They wanted 22 acres, which wasn't easy for us to try to figure out how we can make this work. But they're looking for ultimately, 6, 8, 10 years from now to have a major facility here with dorms and restaurants and different curriculums, all, again, technology, all master degree levels, where some of the schools that are already here could have students that graduate, undergraduate, and go to University of Florida here in the graduate program. So we're really excited. It's, to me, I participated in the stadium. To me, the University of Florida ultimately could be just as big, if not more substantial, for the future. And it's all tied to workforce. I mean, you mentioned Jacksonville, JEDC, the Economic Development Commission. And I would tell people that, what gets the press are the incentives that are given and what the city puts in. But they don't come. It's not the taxes. It's not the location. It's not the incentives. It's, do you have the workforce? That's first. It's always, do you have the numbers and are they capable? Because those other things don't matter if they can't put the employees in. So it's always about workforce development. And we think having all those educational opportunities downtown will be very helpful in expressing to the rest of the country and the rest of the world that we are basically a workforce generator here.
let me jump on that for a minute because obviously there's been so much written and talked about regarding the public education system at Jacksonville. And we've seen some problems over the years, and they're getting worked out now with our new superintendent. But does the system itself, the school system itself, the superintendent, the school board, and others, do they understand how important it is to be able to elevate those grade levels that our students are coming away with so that they can be viable employees in these new ventures that we're going into?
Well, one of the things I don't know if you mentioned was the Kids Hope Alliance. The Kids Hope Alliance. I spent 3 years there before the mayor asked me to do the stadium and the budget. They understand workforce development, and they understand their role in getting junior, what they call here, they're not middle school students.
It used to be junior high school.
Yeah, when I went to school, they were junior high school.
We all
Middle school and high school, and have been starting curriculums to really allow industries to get involved with the school system and start getting kids really interested in careers, whether they be STEM, technology-oriented, or crafts.
Right.
So they get it. But when you do mention the school system, Jacksonville is so unique in being consolidated, having really rural areas and really urban areas. But Jacksonville has the same challenges that the Detroits have and the Philadelphias have. We have urban city challenges as well as real rural challenges. And that's what makes government here so unique, and police so unique, where it's very diverse as to the situations that we end up getting involved in because we're so large geographically and consolidated. But the school system, as far as I'm concerned, for the last three years, and then now with the new superintendent, and the one that was just there temporarily, definitely focused on making sure the kids understand the importance of careers and workforce development, and the idea of high tech and AI and semiconductor work. But school systems, public school systems, they are challenged here.
Well, and on that point, one, let me remind our listeners, when you talk about how big we are, we're 844 square miles.
Largest city in this country other than in Alaska.
Yeah, so when you think about those kind of 844 square miles, just driving this morning, I had to go from Mandarin out to Queens Harbor. I felt like I needed my passport. But kind of going back.
In addition to that, in population, people don't realize they were also the largest city by far in Florida. When they think of Miami, well, Miami isn't nearly as large as us. When you think of Dade County, there's 24, 26 mayors and police chiefs. But the city of Tampa, the city of Miami, St. Petersburg, they're not nearly as Orlando. They're not nearly as large as us, even in population.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I wanted to kind of underscore what Mike just said about where we are with our school system. Mike Tolbert and I had the opportunity to work with the former superintendent on the two referendums, one for sticks and bricks and the one is for teacher salary, both of which the voters passed on that, which is unique to have done two of them in that. But I think that when you talk about that, plus where the mayor is, plus what we're trying to do with workforce development, it's a slow process, it's a challenge, but the voters have already made that commitment, and so we're getting there.
Yeah, the voters have been willing a number of times that we're all somewhat connected to, been willing to invest in the future. They did it with Better Jacksonville, right? And they did it with the pension problem.
Yes.
I mean, both of them referendum, as your two examples, right? All of which were investments in the future. But we're growing. So many people are coming here, and they're coming here for a variety of reasons. We've got to create a workforce that the businesses will also come as well.
Yeah. Something we won't have time to talk about today, but something else that needs to be adjusted for that infusion of people is our infrastructure. Roads, highways, public transportation, all of that needs to be.
Another huge challenge that our mayor is focused on, somewhat unique here, because we have JEA, which is partly involved in the infrastructure. We have JTA, which is partly involved in the infrastructure. And we've got to bring them all together, because where you build the roads and where you build the transmission lines is where growth is going to go, even if you didn't want it to go there. So the people in planning and that do zoning have to be very connected, more so than we even are now, to JTA decisions and JEA decisions as to where they're expanding. So we're all looking for the same ultimate goals as to how we're going to continue to spike out and grow. That's been a discussion the mayor and I have had a couple of times. We got to be a little bit more consolidated with the independent authorities as to where we're heading.
Right. You know, it's not unusual for mayors to have to struggle with funding issues. Since we're talking about all exactly. Back when Tommy Hazouri, of course, was mayor, he proposed Jacksonville's first garbage fee to fill a $20 million financial hole. And we have had a garbage fee ever since. Well, now Mayor Deegan doesn't seem to have those kinds of financial issues as the city is growing because of tax revenues, which we'll get into a little bit later on. However, we are even in a deeper hole when it comes to the cost for garbage collection. As you know, of course, Matt Carlucci has introduced legislation to address this and says that we need to increase the garbage fee from its current level of $12.65 to $30.40 a month. Now, he's not necessarily saying it needs to be done all at once, but he feels that we need to get there over a short period of time. I haven't heard the mayor speak too much to that specific legislation or to the idea of what we can do to fill that hole, or if we need to, or if we can continue having it subsidized from the general fund. Where are we on that?
Well, the mayor, I mean, it's talked about a lot. The mayor is watching and looking at councils. You know, council has taken this initiative upon itself this particular time, and many council members have been there for a while, and this topic keeps coming up. Matt Carlucci is one of them.
Yes.
And he is trying to get the debate more and more out in the open. The mayor's just basically standing back and seeing what's going to happen and seeing how the result of this activity, and then she'll chime in, but she's waiting to see how it goes.
Is that where the expression "keeping your powder dry" comes from?
Yeah, that could very well be. But the way garbage is done now, basically, is that about a third of the cost of the garbage collection is done by fees. The other 2/3 comes out of the general fund. And the argument is that general fund dollars could be used for so many different things.
Also, if I may, Mike, that general fund is collecting money from cities, the 3 beach communities, for instance, who don't use the same garbage service. So they're saying, why are we paying for a service that we don't get?
There's a connection that you mentioned in with the interlocal agreements with the 3 beaches and Baldwin. So it's a little more complicated from a legal perspective, but financially, the garbage fee covers about a third of the cost. The general fund covers the rest. And we'll see where it goes. It's been a topic off and on for many, many years. It was done originally not really to cover the cost of it, but it was to fill a financial gap.
Right.
And it's been left alone ever since. Maybe it'll be addressed, and if it is, we'll see what happens. And the mayor, when she sees how the council feels about it, she'll chime in.
But one of the reasons we're sort of in this big hole, so to speak, with it, that's really been one of the cans that's been kicked down the road for a number of years. Nobody wanted to address it.
One of many cans, been kicked down many rough.
In fact, that can is now, but we're now been faced with, we got to do something.
Well, the general fund contribution keeps getting larger and larger and larger. And as it gets larger, it's getting more attention. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, at the end of this effort that Councilman Carlucci is on, that there's some move forward.
Right.
There's some movement forward, and that would be good.
You know, you can't ignore the politics of garbage fees. And Mike, I know you remember this, Mike Weinstein. Going back, when Mayor Deegan's cousin, Tommy Hazouri, was mayor and proposed the very first garbage fee, I wasn't on his staff or anything, but I wrote most of his speeches, and including his budget messages. And leading up to the budget message, I would go to the mayor's budget review committee meetings for a few weeks to kind of get a flavor of what was going on. And on a Friday meeting, the very last Friday meeting before the council budget message on the next Tuesday, Bernie Shane Brown, the finance director, lets everybody know there's a $20 million budget hole. But he has a way to fix it, and that is we're going to impose a garbage fee, which turned out to be, I think, a $96 garbage fee, as I recall. But anyhow, I'm sitting there next to Mitch Atala, the mayor's CAO, listening to all this and taking notes, and there was no pushback. There were no questions. And I said, wait a minute. I have a couple of questions. Have y'all vetted this with any council members yet? Do you have a sense of what's going to happen when you throw that out there? And of course, the answer was no. My second question was, well, I'm writing the budget message. How do you want me to include that you're going to impose for the first time in the history of consolidation a garbage fee? You want me just to say, oh, by the way? Or you want me to make it the headline? Or what do you want to do? And they said, you got to handle that. And I said, well, here's what's going to happen. I want to make a prediction for you guys. When you leave out of here today and go get on that elevator to go back to your offices, right before the elevator door closes, I'm going to toss a grenade in there, pull the pin and toss a grenade in there as the doors are closing. And that's kind of what's going to happen to you guys come Tuesday night if you don't talk to somebody and get this thing worked out. Now, this is too long a statement about it, but Tommy did get the garbage fee. But as you know, Mike Weinstein and Mike Hightower, but partly because of that garbage fee, Mayor Austin became the mayor. Going back, change the subject because I see a lot. But I want to talk about something else. Recently, the mayor and Sheriff Waters really touted the fact that we've got the lowest murder rate in Jacksonville history. It was the first time murders have not exceeded 100 in a year in the last 12 years. How'd that happen? And who should get the credit, the mayor or the sheriff?
I tell people, if you remember, I did, criminal justice, criminology. You can anticipate crime rates by the population of 16-year-olds and 24-year-olds. As that population set grows, crime rate grows, and as that population set goes down, crime goes down. But murder rates, they're usually personal. The vast majority of them are domestic, know each other and what have you, out of tempers and what have you. But we have the mayor has, and mayors before her have committed more and more resources. I think the sheriff's distribution of resources has helped as part of it. I think population changes have helped with it. Maybe more people working, if that's the case. There's probably a dozen variables that have impacted it in some ways, but definitely resources put at the sheriff, this sheriff and sheriffs before them, as well as mayors before this one and this mayor interested in crime prevention. We put a lot of money into KHA, a lot of money into literacy, a lot of money into trying to divert children at the first time they get in trouble. So I think all those things have had somewhat of an impact. But it's always, and in Florida and in Jacksonville, we're strong. I mean, we're not a city that tolerates misbehavior. So we do try to keep people in jail that need to be in jail and in prison that need to be in prison. We don't have a revolving door. We do have bail. I mean, we do have ways that prevent crime. And we have a substantial, our public safety, whether it be sheriff or fire, for many, many, many years is top notch. We're looked at statewide and nationally as some of the best. So I think all of them, all these efforts deserve some of the credit and not just one for sure.
What's the status now of restoring or renewing the Jacksonville Journey, which, as you know very well, was given a lot of credit for being successful in primarily crime prevention. I know I've heard there's an effort to resurrect some of that. Where are we with that? Is it coming back?
That's a good question. On the past Journey effort, when it was dissolved, a lot of it went to the sheriff's office to do, and a lot of it went to KHA to do. So some of the programs of the old Journey are still in existence. One of the ways that Journey was successful is they swarmed The overtime went berserk, budgets went berserk, and they just put so many police officers in high crime areas. And it did have an impact of lowering it, but you couldn't afford it long term. But just yesterday at Rules, they approved maybe a half a dozen of what will become the new Journey Advisory Committee. They're calling it Journey Forward. It was one of the priorities of the mayor. She campaigned on it. They went through transition about it. And it's going to be focused on crime prevention and juvenile programs, adult programs. Charles Griggs it was brought on to basically run that. So he will be staffed to this advisory board. And literally, I would say like 2/3 of the members got passed by Rules. And then the rest will come. And the ones that were passed by Rules yesterday will be in front of council next Tuesday to get confirmed, and it'll start. Until now, Charles has been on a couple of months. We've been gathering research. We've gotten some resources. So we're ready once the advisory committee gets together and starts setting priorities. So a new journey 6 months from now will be very active, and there'll be programs that are happening in the community funded through Journey. Now, it won't be quite as large as far as the numbers. There'll be Journey eventually consolidated with the Children's Commission, and they had like 20 advisory. This is basically a 7 to 9 member advisory group, but it's happening again.
Mike Weinstein and I happened to have co-managed Ed Austin's campaign together, and it was a unique experience. That's where I got to know Mike. And because of that campaign, and then because of Mike then moving with John Delaney when he became mayor, I had the opportunity to sit sort of on the front row. Mike Weinstein was on inside. I was sort of on the front row watching. Mike, having had that opportunity to sit with those two incredible men and what they did, I'm curious to know, how do you compare those mayor to this mayor? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, when Ed became mayor, I don't know how old he was, but he had been he was public defender, he was state attorney, had private practice, general counsel, then became mayor. And Ed Austin's main asset was mentoring and take myself out of it, picking good people and mentoring them, whether it be Audrey Moran, Rick Mullaney, John Delaney, myself, half the judicial branch. I mean, there's probably 30, 40, 50, Judge Black, Leon Shaw, just tremendous careers that he had started. He wasn't really hands-on. He was a leader, and would he once told me that he would much rather have to pull people back than light fires under them. So he surrounded himself with people that were somewhat aggressive and leaders, and he would sort of referee and what have you. The mayor currently, again, a 5-7 generation member here, totally interested in Jacksonville, wants to know everything, is probably the best communicator that I've ever been around. Now, she's had a career in it, so, you would expect it, but as far as working a crowd, being in front of a camera, there's nobody that I've seen better, and I've seen a lot. Delaney, interested in other things and has had a great career since. Mm-hmm. Very astute politically, and just basically learned from Ed Austin how to help people accomplish what it is they're supposed to accomplish. And I feel as a manager, my job is to help others do what they're supposed to do, not to micromanage. Delaney, they're all very, very different, all very successful, but very different styles. But as far as my career, I mean, everything I owe to Ed Austin. I've been very blessed that Mayor Deegan has offered me the opportunities that she's offered me. And she is just so totally committed to the city. It's incredible. And she is, she has her focuses. It's infrastructure, it's homelessness, it's health, and others. But she is a zealot for downtown.
Well, don't underestimate what you did. I mean, the two of you together pulling off the stadium deal and now La Villa. I mean, y'all were good partners. Don't underestimate what you brought to the table.
I've been very fortunate, and she's let me sort of run a little bit, which is always dangerous if she's been given any advice. And I think John Payton was given this advice. You know, you got to watch him. He tends to go astray.
We're glad you're here.
We've gone through a lot of the successes that the mayor has had this year and in her first year as well. If you were to pick two of the most important things that she's accomplished, and you all have accomplished, what would you pick?
In the year and a half?
Yeah.
Well, the easy ones are the stadium and the University of Florida. But I'd have to think more than just, because those are just so obvious. They're construction. She's brought, one of the differences I should have mentioned and didn't, because I didn't think of it until you asked me that. This floor is very different than the fourth floors of the other mayors. She's brought portfolios to this fourth floor, where she has people that are focused on health. She has someone that's focused on homelessness, someone that's focused on analytics, where in the past, all those things, if they were done at all, would have been embedded somewhere in the departments. And everybody, before Mayor Deegan, I don't know about the ones I didn't serve, would have staff up here that really is focused on the mayor. How do we make the quality of life of the mayor? How do we deal with her the events? How do we deal with her calendar? And everybody's focused on that. We're here, that's not really the focus on the fourth floor. You have some people on the second floor that are involved in public relations and what have you. But this is where they're talking about homelessness. This is where they're talking about health for the community. This is where they're talking about things. Journey, Charles is up here on the fourth floor, is not embedded somewhere. So she has raised the portfolio that she's been interested in and ran on to the level of the fourth floor of the mayor's office, executive staff, where that really hasn't happened in the 3 or 4 other mayors that I have served. And it also makes sure that her focus and her priorities are more taken care of, where it's not one of many responsibilities within a department. It definitely, and you'll see in the budgets, and you'll see in her press releases and her community outreach, continuing to go back to her campaign, what she ran on, her focuses, and that's what she surrounded herself with, people that are interested in those particular areas. And that to me was a little unique, where it's not just running, it's not just keeping the trains running, right? Keeping the trains running, but also a tremendous focus on what her priorities are at the same time.
I mean, it's no question that the mayor has, I think, had an impressive string of accomplishments in her first months. But if she could get a do-over, what would she like to change to get a different outcome?
I think that she would have used different words from London. I think that's the only redo. I think we've done well. A year and a half, we've done very, very well.
Everybody, we've run out of time. Mike Weinstein, thank you so very, very much for inviting us to your offices to do this. We appreciate it. Good to see you, Michael. Best of luck to you and to the mayor going forward.
Thanks for all you all have accomplished. We appreciate it.
All right. So that's going to do it for this week. Once again, our thanks to the Jacksonville History Center and Alan Bliss and our fine contributors who keep the cameras rolling and the lights on. We'll see you all again next week.
Y'all take care.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.